Moving to Silver Pines was supposed to be a fresh start. Quiet neighborhood, lakeside views, friendly families. At least that's what the realtor said. What she didn't say was that Silver Pines came with an unofficial dictator, HOA Karen. From the first day we moved in, Karen was right there on our driveway, clipboard in hand, glaring like we had already violated all 10 commandments of HOA rules. "You can't park the moving truck like that," she snapped. We hadn't even opened the back doors yet. Every single day after that, she found something new to complain about. "Your mailbox is 2 inches too tall. Your trash cans face the wrong direction. Your dog barked once during quiet hours." She treated the neighborhood like her own private kingdom, and we were invaders that needed to be controlled. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what she did next. The night it happened. It was around 9 p.m., peaceful and calm. My wife was working a late shift, and I was putting our daughter Lily to bed. She's 8, curious, brave, and way too smart for her age. We had just finished reading her bedtime story when we heard it. Clink. A tiny metallic noise coming from the living room. Then, a dragging sound. At first, I thought maybe it was the cat knocking something over, until I remembered, we don't have a cat. My heart rate picked up. "Dad, what was that?" Lily asked, gripping my arm. I placed a finger over my lips and whispered, "Stay here." I slowly stepped toward the hallway, careful not to make noise. Another sound followed, this time louder, scree-eek, like someone forcing a window open. I inched closer until I could peek around the wall. And then my blood froze. A hand slipped inside through the slightly open living room window. Then came a head, squeezing through the gap, and the face attached to it. I would have recognized that scowl anywhere. It was Karen. The dumbest break-in ever. She muttered to herself while grunting, "These people think they can break every rule." She had a flashlight in her mouth and gardening shears strapped to her belt. Who breaks in like that? Her floral scarf got stuck on the window latch and she started fighting it like a trapped animal. I whispered loudly, "Karen? What are you doing in my house?" She hissed back, "Checking for HOA compliance. You left your porch light on past regulation hours." I stared at her in disbelief. "You're trespassing. Get out before I call the cops." She made a dramatic gasp, like I was the one in the wrong. "You can't call the police on an HOA official," she yelled, still halfway stuck. That's when a loud beep, 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 beep exploded through the house. Lily, my fearless little hero, had already pressed the panic alarm we installed last month. Red emergency lights flashed in the hallway. Our siren wailed like an ambulance. And Karen? She screamed and slipped, her legs still dangling out the window while her torso flopped inside our living room like a fish out of water. Police response. Fast. Furious. Within 2 minutes, pounding fists slammed against our front door. "Police! Open up!" Karen's eyes widened and she yelled, "Tell them I'm a guest! Tell them!" I opened the door, motioned toward the window, and simply said, "She broke into my house." The officers shined their flashlights on her, suspended awkwardly halfway inside, and the entire situation became a comedy scene. "What on earth are you doing, ma'am?" the officer asked. Karen puffed up like she had authority. I have HOA jurisdiction." Both officers looked at each other and burst into laughter. "You're going to jail," one said, pulling out the handcuffs. "No, you can't arrest me. I am the neighborhood regulations." As they helped yank her out of the window, she shrieked again, this time because her scarf finally gave way and snapped against her neck. I picked up Lily, who proudly crossed her arms and smirked like a secret agent. "Dad," she whispered, "I saved the day." "You absolutely did," I told her. And as Karen was escorted to the patrol car, screaming about porch lights and mailboxes, one thing became clear. This HOA queen just got dethroned. And this was only the beginning of her downfall. The night after the fence argument, the house was wrapped in a thick silence. the kind that makes even the ticking clock feel threatening. Steve tried watching TV to unwind, but his eyes kept drifting toward the window Karen had pointed at earlier, the one facing her house. She wouldn't do something crazy, right? He wanted to believe that. He tried. Lily had already gone to bed, her teddy bear tucked under her arm. She was a smart kid, too smart sometimes, and she noticed the tension in her dad's jaw when he kissed her goodnight. "Daddy, is the mean lady going to come back?" she whispered. No, she's just upset," he murmured, brushing her hair. "You're safe, I promise." But promises can break under pressure. The alarm that changed everything. Steve had installed a brand new security system last month, a decision he suddenly appreciated more than any fence in the world. At 2:17 a.m., beep, beep, beep! The alarm shrieked through the house like a panicked warning. Steve jolted upright from the couch, knocking over his drink. He sprinted down the hallway toward Lily's room. Her door was already open. "Daddy!" Lily screamed, pointing past him. Steve turned, and his blood froze. There, halfway through Lily's bedroom window, was a human figure, knees on the windowsill, head ducked low, hands fumbling with the latch. For a terrifying heartbeat, Steve couldn't breathe. Then the outdoor motion lights triggered, and they revealed a familiar floral blouse. Karen. Caught in the act. Karen looked like a raccoon in a trash bin, startled, wild-eyed, her foot dangling inside the room. "What the— Karen!" Steve shouted, adrenaline blasting through him. She yelped and slipped, falling awkwardly outside onto the grass. Almost instantly, a new alarm began blaring, a piercing siren Steve didn't install. It came from Lily. She stood there clutching her backpack, the one her dad had outfitted with a personal keychain alarm. She had triggered it the moment she saw Karen's shadow. Her small hands shook, but her eyes were fierce. "You stay away from my house!" she cried. Steve scooped her close, heart pounding so violently he could hear it. Outside, Karen scrambled to her feet, brushing dirt and grass off her clothes, her expression twisted into pure rage. You can't put alarms on my property line," she shouted back, stabbing her finger toward the window like she had authority over the air itself. Steve stepped forward, voice low and trembling. "My daughter's room is not your property." Karen scoffed, crossing her arms. "I was just inspecting. You broke HOA code. That window is facing the street and it needs HOA-approved blinds. You broke into my house." "I didn't break. The window was unlocked," she argued, as if that made it perfectly legal. Lily looked at her dad, horrified. "Is she going to take me too?" Steve's heart snapped. That was it. No more calm, no more walking away. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. Karen's face faltered. "You're calling the police? On me? I am the HOA vice president." "And I'm a parent," Steve said through clenched teeth. "And this is over." The sirens arrive. Karen tried to march back to her house, pretending nothing happened, but 2 squad cars were already turning the corner, lights flashing, tires crunching the gravel. Her confidence crumbled. The deputies approached with flashlights raised, and Karen began her dramatic performance, tears magically appearing. "He attacked me!" she wailed, pointing at Steve. Steve calmly turned to the officers. "My daughter's room! That window! The alarm recorded everything!" Lily, tiny but unshakable, stepped forward and said loudly, "She tried to climb inside." There was no denying it now. The officers guided Karen toward the patrol car as she babbled excuses and HOA bylaws like a broken lawn sprinkler. "This is harassment! I was protecting the neighborhood! This is a misunderstanding! I pay your salaries!" The officers didn't even acknowledge it. Steve hugged Lily tight. "You did perfect," he whispered into her hair. The line had been crossed. As Karen was driven away, she glared through the window, a silent promise that this wasn't finished. And Steve knew. For someone like her, being arrested wasn't punishment. It was fuel. She would come back, stronger, meaner, more desperate. But this time, he'd be ready. Because she didn't just break a rule, she tried to break into his home, and a father protects what's his. The night after deputies hauled Karen off the property, Steve expected peace, the kind of quiet where cicadas hum and porch lights flicker over calm lawns. But calm in this HOA was just the quiet before a storm. He paced the living room, arms crossed, replaying the night in his head. Karen's shrill voice echoing through the hallway windows. Lily's trembling hands clinging to his arm. That blaring alarm shaking the entire neighborhood awake. "Dad?" Lily whispered from the couch, wrapped in a blanket. Steve turned. "It's okay. She's gone. For tonight." He said it with confidence he didn't fully feel. Outside, a cluster of porch lights flicked on. Neighbors gathered in small groups, whispering. Phones filmed the patrol cars pulling away with Karen inside, some with relief, others with annoyance, and a few with suspicion. One of them was HOA Vice President, Mr. Harrington, a tall, pinched-faced man with a sweater draped over his shoulders like he thought he was royalty. He strutted toward Steve's driveway. "Steve, we need to talk!" he called in a tone that suggested it wasn't a request. Steve stepped outside, closing the door behind him just enough that Lily couldn't hear. "What do you want?" Harrington's jaw clenched. "You caused a disturbance, blaring alarms at midnight, police swarming our community. You're making us look like a circus." Steve's laugh was dry. "Your president crawled through my window." "Allegedly," Harrington corrected. "She says she was simply checking for violations, safety issues. You know how passionate she is about compliance." Steve stared in disbelief. "She invaded my home. My daughter was terrified." Harrington waved it off with the same dismissive flick one uses for dust. "We all know children exaggerate. Besides, Karen has always said you were uncooperative." That word hit Steve like a slap. Uncooperative? For minding his business on his own land? "So what is this?" Steve stepped forward. "Retaliation because I wouldn't let the HOA bully my family?" Harrington didn't flinch. "Your attitude is making things unpleasant for everyone. We expect residents to be good neighbors, compliant neighbors." That settled it. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a coordinated smear. "Here's what's going to happen," Harrington continued smugly. "Tomorrow morning, there will be an emergency HOA hearing regarding your conduct. If you don't show, well, I can't promise there won't be consequences." "Is that a threat?" Steve growled. Harrington smiled, but his eyes were cold. "A promise." He pivoted sharply and walked off into the darkness. Steve clenched his fists, chest tight with frustration. Through the window, he saw Lily peeking out, eyes wide with worry. He forced a gentle smile and returned inside. "Was that the HOA?" she asked. "Yeah, but don't worry. They can't do anything real," he said. He hoped that was true. A sleepless night. Steve tucked Lily into bed, double-checking the window locks. "Dad," she whispered, voice small, "what if she comes back?" Steve knelt beside her, brushing hair from her forehead. "She won't. And even if she tried, we're prepared now. That alarm saved us." She nodded, gripping her stuffed cat like a lifeline. Once she slept, Steve sat at his desk, laptop glowing in the dark. He started digging. HOA rulebook, property laws, trespassing statutes, homeowner rights. Every page fueled his resolve more. The deeper he read, the clearer it became. Karen had broken countless laws long before she ever stepped foot inside. She'd weaponized the HOA, harassed families, intimidated anyone who stood up to her. People had been too scared to fight back. But Steve? He wasn't scared anymore. He printed out everything. Copies of legal trespass codes, home security footage, timestamps, a log of every HOA harassment incident, emails Karen had sent threatening fees. He made a neat stack, clipped perfectly. Evidence ready. No more holding back. Morning after sunrise painted the neighborhood gold. an innocent disguise over a battlefield. Steve dressed calmly, brewing coffee while Lily ate toast quietly, still on edge. "Do you have to go?" she asked. "Yes," he said firmly. "Because if I don't, they'll think they can walk all over us." She nodded, trying to look brave. He kissed the top of her head. "Lock the doors. Alarm on. I'll be back soon." He walked outside. The HOA clubhouse door stood open, neighbors filing in like spectators to a show. Harrington waited at the entrance, arms crossed, smirking. "Ready to accept responsibility?" he mocked. Steve showed him the folder of papers and smiled coolly. "Ready to expose corruption." Harrington's smirk faltered for the first time. A war was coming inside. Board members shuffled nervously. Whispers filled the room. Rumors of what happened last night spreading like wildfire, and in the center seat, now back on bail, sat Karen herself. Bruised ego, arms crossed, eyes burning with hatred. "You," she hissed when she saw Steve. He took his seat across from her, leaning forward. "This time," he said quietly, "you picked the wrong family." Karen didn't look scared. She looked furious, which only meant one thing. Tonight wouldn't be the last time she tried to break them. Not even close. "Order! Let's bring this meeting to order!" Harrington shouted, slamming a wooden gavel onto the table like he owned the courthouse. The HOA hearing had begun. The room was full, more spectators than board members. Some neighbors looked anxious, others curious, but all eyes shifted between Steve and Karen like watching two storms collide. Karen leaned back in her chair, a stiff neck brace and an exaggerated wrist brace strapped on, all for dramatic effect. She sniffed loudly, pretending to be the victim. Harrington cleared his throat. "Mr. Miller, you are being evaluated for—" Steve raised a hand. "Before you go any further, I'd like to submit documented evidence." He placed a thick folder on the table. Printed laws, time-stamped alarm footage, screenshots of threatening HOA emails, everything carefully organized. Whispers swept the room. Harrington frowned. "This isn't your trial." "No," Steve cut him off. "It's your accountability check." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Karen scoffed. "You people seriously believe this man? He set me up. That window trap was an attack." Steve stared. "You climbed through a child's bedroom window at midnight." Karen banged her fist, or tried to, but realized she had fake injuries and switched hands awkwardly. "I was ensuring compliance. His curtains were—" "The only violation," Steve interrupted, "was you breaking the law." A couple neighbors in the back snickered. Karen shot them a death glare. Just then, the clubhouse door opened. Sheriff Torres walked in, the same officer who arrested Karen the night before. Karen paled. Torres took her place near Steve, arms folded. "This is now a criminal matter," he announced, "not an HOA one." Harrington stammered. This is an internal dispute." Torres's voice sharpened. "Someone entering a locked residence is felony breaking and entering. Any attempt to cover it up is obstruction." Karen shrank into her chair. "The neighbors speak." A woman stood from the second row, Mrs. Pate, nervous but determined. "Karen threatened me with a $500 fine because my welcome mat was pink," she said. "She scared me, for years." Another neighbor spoke up. "She ordered a crew to enter my backyard without permission." Then a third. "She told my teen daughter she'd ruin our family if we didn't repaint our door." Confession after confession. Fear turning into courage. Harrington attempted one last power move. "This meeting is adjourned." Torres stepped forward. "No. This board is complicit in enabling harassment. We'll be reviewing every complaint filed against Karen and the board." Karen's chair scraped loudly as she stood. "You can't touch me. I am this community." Steve finally smiled. "Not anymore." Torres produced handcuffs. "You violated bail by confronting residents again today. Let's go." "Arrested!" Again, Karen shrieked as the cuffs clicked. "You'll all regret this! My lawyer will destroy you!" The neighbors didn't look scared this time. The sheriff let her out while she kicked and screamed. A long, overdue moment of justice. Peace returns. The HOA meeting dissolved quickly. People clustered around Steve, thanking him, shaking his hand, finally breathing again. Harrington slipped out the back like a coward. He knew his days in office were numbered. That night, Steve returned home, lighter, relieved. Lily ran into his arms. "Is she gone?" "For good," he assured her. She smiled for the first time since the incident. They sat down for dinner, the house quiet, safe again. But halfway through the meal, there was a knock at the door. Steve's heart briefly tightened, until he opened it to see a group of neighbors with a cake. "We thought we'd welcome you properly," Mrs. Pate said shyly. "And thank you." Lily's eyes lit up. For the first time since moving in, Steve felt like they belonged. A new beginning. Weeks later. Karen was sentenced to 6 months and mandatory counseling. Harrington resigned. A new HOA board was elected. Trespassing bylaws were rewritten. Security patrol increased. Neighbors formed a community watch, together. And best of all, Steve installed a new sign outside the window Karen once climbed through. "Protected property. Alarm system active, violators will trigger." A very loud kid Lily helped paint it. They high-fived, laughing. Final message. Karen thought she was the queen of the HOA, but she forgot something. Good neighbors stick together. Bullies fall when the community rises. A father protecting his child is unstoppable. Steve didn't just defend his home, he restored an entire neighborhood's courage.